Father Joshtrom Isaac Kureethadam is coordinator of the sector of Ecology and Creation at the Vatican Dicastery for promoting integral human development, one of the closest advisors on climate to Pope Francis. At the Vatican Dicastery for promoting integral human development, he currently stands as one of the closest advisors on climate to Pope Francis. His latest work, The 10 Green Commandments of Laudato Si, was published in 2018. Michael Reid Trice was able to speak with Father Joshtrom in recent months. Take a listen.
This is a Religica production. Religica.
When you say creation, for those who may not share the same theology or come from the same religion, what is it you have in mind with creation itself?
Yeah, creation is being very mystical. I mean, it's God's love letter to humanity. Early fathers of the church used to speak about the two books, the book of works and the book of words. And the book of words is Bible, or for Muslims it's Quran, and Hindus Veda. So it can vary according to the experience of each religion or their founders. But the book of works is common. I mean, God's first epiphany is creation itself, where everything is a manifestation of God. So every creature, every bird, every plant, every tree can speak to us. And I think Meister Eckhart who speaks of this as letters in this book of God. So even Saint Augustine, he used to say, if you want to find God, don't read books, read the book.
Almost 500 million years ago, life begins and explodes.
Life exactly begins 3.9 billion years ago. The first cyanobacteria, unicellular, so micro, so small. Then it evolves into multicellular cells, and life evolves. And interestingly, for the first 3 billion years almost, life was mostly the oceans. That is because we didn't have the ozone layer, and ozone is O3. It's when you had sufficient oxygen, then it was possible to create the ozone layer. This again, Earth is protected from this harmful rays of the sun.
If we had been standing on the Earth 3 billion years ago without the ozone layer, lots of ocean, but it would have been terrible.
Yeah, it would have. And so the moment the ozone layer was created, the first forms of life come out of water. They inhabit the lands, and the Homo sapiens is we are very recent. We are hardly 200,000 years old. It's this Carl Sagan, famous cosmologist, and he says if the entire history of the planet Earth can be compared to 1 year, he says humanity appears on the 31st of December, just 8 minutes before the midnight.
You've studied philosophy and theology. When did we enter modernity in this sense that we believed we were somehow enclosed and individual and somewhat isolated, and that was good?
But technically it would be after the Middle Ages, and it's a number of others, with Galileo already comes into the scene, but it's more Francis Bacon, the idea of mastery over nature, and especially Descartes, who really gives a philosophical worldview in terms of res cogitans, total absolute center of the universe, then res extensa, world as just real estate, inert matter, no teleology, no telos, nothing. And this famous metaphysical separation between this, we have nothing to do with the rest of creation. And that created modern science, technology, modern economics, mentioned real estate, buy and sell, and do whatever we want.
Did it reduce us as well to a kind of atomized material thing? So now materialism became a key virtue? And our metaphysical essence was somewhat diminished?
Exactly. And also, even theology picked up from there, you asked about, implicitly about salvation, it's my salvation, and it was not the case in the early centuries. It was the scripture speaks of letter to the Ephesians, Colossians, first chapter, that everything was created in Christ, for Christ, in view of Christ, and that everything will be recapitulated in Christ. So creation is a very noble destiny. It's walking, it came from God, it's returning to God, and our task is to accompany. So, whereas from modernity we think of, I need to save my soul, so my body is forgotten. And it's me, my soul. I don't think of we save ourselves together. No one is going to save it, because real heaven is total happiness, and how can I be happy without having my brother or sister with me, and not just humanity, the entire creation. Like,
in terms of care for creation, what do you see when you think of 5 years, 10 years from now, with respect to responses from communities of faith in the world, or even governments in the world? Are you hopeful about the direction we're moving in? Are you more concerned?
I would stand with concern, and we are really concerned.
Okay.
Take any of the manifestations of the ecological crisis, water scarcity is becoming a big problem. Pope Francis repeats quite often that the next world war could be for water, and then pollution. Some of our cities are so polluted. The next COP24 is going to be in Poland. I was in Krakow 2 weeks ago, and the carbon pollution. I'm from India originally, and I remember the last November, around the Diwali celebration, when there are firecrackers and lights, and for over a week, and those days, just to live in New Delhi was like having to smoke 46 cigarettes a day, So pollution is a big problem, especially in species extinction we just mentioned, and species are going to extinction some 10,000 times faster than the natural rate.
It's faster than we realized even 5 years ago.
And climate change, especially with the latest IPCC report, we thought we had a few more years to make the transition, and now they're saying to remain at 1.5 degrees centigrade. We have something like 12 years. People don't realize, because people say, okay, what's the thing with 1 or 2 degrees? I tell I also teach ecology, and I tell them Earth's average temperature, so it can be minus 40 or 50 at the poles and 40 or 50 in the tropics. But Earth's average temperature varied hardly a degree, last 10,000 years, And now, from 1850, we're already more than 1 degree change now. And by the end of the century, even with Paris Climate Agreement, we are walking towards 3 degrees centigrade. In a few decades, imagine and we are already seeing the impacts of hardly just over 1 degree centigrade in terms of the floods and droughts and hurricanes.
And we have cities that are Sao Paulo to Cape Town,
exactly,
to the Marshall Islands are really underwater.
And 1.5 degrees, what we call the physical threshold. Because if you go beyond that, Marshall Islands, it's a 40 island state, not just island states, also most of our coastal regions are going to go underwater. Even a thing because early we thought 2 degree was the safe limit. And thanks to the last Paris Climate Agreement, especially the small island states, they raised their voice, said, no, we cannot go beyond 1.5. Because our future is in danger. And thank God we listened to them, and IPCC was asked to prepare a special report on 1.5 degrees centigrade. And the very scientists realized that 1.5 degrees is really crucial. A simple example between 1.5 and 2. Now, if we had to remain at 1.5, we could have a free summer, Arctic ice-free summer once in every 100 years. If you have to go into 2, that will happen every 10 years. And which means so much of ice melting, and they say only with the Greenland were to melt, it can raise the sea level by 7 meters. It could take thousands of years, but once it begins, there's nothing we can do. So 1.5 is so crucial. Just to give one example, there was reading, in China, the impacts of drought can double from 1.5 to 2, the number of people who will be affected by droughts. So 1 point...
It would double the amount of people, just at half a degree.
Just half a degree,
What do your level of concern is based on scientific evidence that you've been able to assess?
The physical threshold but then there's also a moral threshold. Moral threshold is some of the things I already mentioned, a number of people who can go hungry. It can increase by millions if it go into 2 degrees, then the small island states and climate migrants and all these people. Then I also would like to speak of a theological threshold, that if creation is entrusted to us, and creation is to promote life. Jesus himself said, I came so we may life and life in all its fullness. And going beyond 1.5 would mean that a lot of life is going to be wiped out, and poor people will find it even more difficult creation will not be creation anymore. Like it's not a place to live in. Like so there's also a theological threshold we cannot afford to go beyond. So that way we are really concerned. Also representing the Vatican. Like we are last few months we have been working on the one even before the IPCC report came out. We are talking about it from last 7-8 years, the months like. So we are concerned. At the same time, we are hopeful in the sense we don't want to give up. So what we need is to act and create a mass movement of people, and that's where we see the religions can play a big role. This morning I was saying in the Climate Assembly that if all the religions come together, we are more than 2/3 of humanity.
For a more serious assessment of this,
yeah.
What is changing about how we think about home?
Yeah.
And what is the challenge for us in re-understanding home?
Yeah. It's a very, very, I remember, a very interesting point because it's again what we mentioned again, the isolated atomistic culture. I go back to Descartes, it's self-centeredness, egocentric, res cogitans, it's such ego. And the climax of it today is a selfie, it's a way of saying in a very popular way, in the selfie you are the center, and sometimes when I see people taking so many selfies, and it's a culture that has got into us, and family is about relationships, and so we are at the same time all said and done, it's a situation of homelessness. It's a thing we are not rooted, and it's interesting that levels of depression are going up, and even suicides, and especially I'm a bit sorry among young people, because you have very young people, and because you have, as Pope Francis says, it's like this. Even the social media is supposed to connect you to people, but then you are not alive or real to the person next to you, and you are virtually in connected to somebody thousands of miles away, but it's still a virtual connection, it's not a real connection. So I think it's true that the challenge is, the situation is there, home is not like it was before, but I think it's all the more reason to rediscover home,
And we can,
we can, and we can.
And that's a theology of hope and that kind of rediscovery.
Yeah, exactly. And I see a lot of scope in that, because it's not just for the sake of climate change, but that then makes you, it's when is a person really happy? When we are generous with others, it's not when my bank accounts, I may be happy. It's a very selfish happiness. And in fact, you lose sleep. They say the richer you are, you sleep, less or, less well, because you're concerned about so many things. And so it's when we are really generous that we are, it's when we live as a family, it's also because we are created for that. God is also is Trinity, and for us Christians we speak of. It has always struck me the mystery of incarnation. Even cosmologically, when I say that the universe is so huge, we are 2 trillion galaxies.
Think of that.
And God chose this earth, to be incarnate. And there was a purpose, and so this earth was prepared from the theological point of view to be the home of God. So again, the word home, but not just humanity's home. It's where John 1:14, where Saint John says God pitched his tent here and made earth God's home, its incarnation. And again, the fact that God could have come on the earth in so many ways, but God chose the womb of a family. When you, even now that we are walking towards Christmas, when you realize that God became a child in all his fragility and also in all his beauty, God became a human person, a child, and within a family, and family is the model, and for us the Sacred Family of Nazareth. But then every family is supposed to mirror that family,
to mirror that sense of family. And I wonder, with all of the signs of what's happening to the world around climate change, what are the signs of hope that you see that we need to be attentive to and watching out for?
The signs of hope, also especially working at the Vatican, I can repeat it, is that lots of movements or initiatives are springing up around the world. And what strikes me is God is raising up simple people. We have women's groups coming, children's groups coming, young people coming together, farmers coming together, indigenous people coming together. So those are, I see, as signs of hope. And God always chooses simple people, like Francis of Assisi or even Pope Francis, and give them very extraordinary. God chooses ordinary people and entrusts them with extraordinary mission. And the way also the young girl Mary was chosen at the Annunciation, a humble virgin, So the signs of hope I see is not. We are worried about the response from the governments or heads of states or even corporations. Very discouraging. But the signs of hope is that we find that God is raising simple people around the world, for me,
everyday people
who
are just wanting to live their lives with integrity and hope.
And they're willing to share. And I've seen it even with children on the street, they share among themselves. And I think that's again generosity, solidarity, and that's a virtue of the poor. I don't think I put the interview, you feel free, some time ago, a person came to my office, the Dicastery, and he said he was in a country, and at one stage he left his home because he rebelled against his father. And he said he was just started traveling, and so he had no money, so he had to sit on the top of the train, very dangerous, and where some poor people were there. And he said when the time came for them to eat, or these beggars took out their bread, and so spontaneously they shared it with him. And he said he was so struck, he said, and now he's spending his life for the betterment of the planet and for the poor. But he's learned the lesson from the poor. So I think in this moment of crisis, those who will really lead the revolution will be small people. It will come from below, as every true revolution is. And as theologically, that's the way God works. The apostles were chosen, and that's the reason I'm also hopeful. It's true that we are few, but like the 12 apostles who changed the world, and if you have few convinced people who are concerned about creation care and famous thresholds we cannot go beyond, then they can change the world.
You have been listening to Religica. Visit us at www.religica.org.